It should. Yep. All right, good. Well, welcome back to the podcast. Today I have Dr. Catherine Huss-Johnson with us, and she's going to talk to us about her own experience, her health and her experience with weight loss surgery, and her subsequent amazing work that she's doing with Bari Boot Camp. So without further ado, welcome.
Thank you, Allison. I appreciate being here.
Yes, it's so wonderful to have you and have you share your story and your amazing work that you're doing to help others.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So tell us about yourself and your past and your inspirations.
Well, as you know, we met many moons ago when I was a nurse practitioner on the OBGYN service.
Yes, and I was a resident and learning. Yes.
And I worked particularly closely with the residents, which was the best experience of my life, I think. And at the time I was fighting morbid obesity, probably losing, but I was fighting morbid obesity.
Yeah.
And finally in 2013, after a health scare, I went and had Roux-en-Y gastric bypass surgery.
Yeah.
And lost 150 plus pounds. And have pretty much maintained it. I bounce up and down, but I've kept it within 25 pounds of my nadir.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
Which is, believe me, it's not with
Right.
a tremendous amount of effort, and I'm afraid to let up on that at all. But
yeah.
Then after, I lost my weight, the surgeon who did my surgery approached me and asked me if I wanted to work with him in the hospital. And so I started covering the bariatric service.
Oh, wow.
And did that for 10 years and then went into the office and worked with him in the office, which was just amazing.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit.
Right. Yes.
And then COVID hit.
Yes, the great disruptor.
The great disruptor. But it opened doors for more opportunities because we began to see that people were having weight regain and were fretting big time about it. But there was so much we could do, coaching over the phone and writing things out and sending things out that provided that extra support. We couldn't have a support group. So this was a way of doing that the best we
you
could.
Have a support group before the like an in-person support group before?
We did, and it was tremendous.
Just tremendous.
So people really miss support group. So it kind of changed things around and made me look in another direction of how I could educate my patients and support my patients. But I had been toying with the idea of going back for a doctorate. I really wanted to have a doctorate. It was something that was kind of burning in me. And I found a wonderful program that was offered through an HBCU in Virginia. And went back. I left full-time practice and went back to school and got my doctorate. And my whole focus was on bariatric surgery, weight regain, and the best way to deal with it.
Yeah. Wow. That's such a important thing because it
is.
I feel like, and I had, for the listeners, 2 episodes ago, I had a bariatric surgeon on, and she's also amazing. And she explained the procedure really well. But one thing that we talked about in that episode is only 1% of people who are eligible for surgery actually have the surgery. And so just imagine how little we know, as much as, it's still, in terms of weight regain and all of this, we know it's very effective and it does have long-term results, but we also know, that there are these risks, and especially as hopefully more people who are eligible get access to this, the afterwards is so important.
It is. It's critical. And you try and I wish I made mistakes. Believe me, I made mistakes in my own journey. But if people could just embrace the fact that you have to do this for the rest of your life,
Right.
and you can make it doable. It's easy.
Yeah.
At least for me.
Right.
I have a lot of support.
Yeah.
Um, Tremendous support from my family, but there's little things that you do every day, getting your protein, making sure you get a support group in, at least a couple of times a month,
Yeah.
watching, planning out what you're eating.
Right. That makes sense.
Keep, and keeping your house set up so that it's conducive to your journey. There
Yes.
are certain things that I will not have in my house.
And this is hard, especially if you live with other people too. And that's exactly why support groups are so important. Oh, well, not just how do you do this for yourself with issues, but how do you do this when you're living with more than one, like just not just by yourself, and how, what techniques do you have to, I imagine that comes up a lot too.
Oh, well, think about, I still had kids at home when I had my surgery.
Right. Yeah.
They still ate. And they wanted their goodies. So I took my stuff and sequestered it to one cabinet,
Mm-hmm.
and that was it. Every other cabinet was off limits to me emotionally.
Right. Yeah.
And it really did help. And you go through this kind of period of time where people test you a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
or they kind of, you can have just a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, why haven't you made thus and such? Because
Right.
it, it, so it's kind of learning how to negotiate those little minefields.
Right.
But again, having the support and doing those things, step at a time, it makes all the difference in the world.
Right. Yeah.
It,
To have that community and and support.
definitely.
So tell us about what you were studying and like what you learned during the doctorate.
Oh, keeping accessibility equal for everyone, which is why when you look at Bari
Mm-hmm.
Boot Camp, my membership fee is $10 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And believe me, there are plenty of people out there that can't afford $10 a month. So we
Right.
give a lot of scholarships out.
That's
Um, the,
amazing. And
well,
helpful.
it, I don't want anyone to get the idea that they're not welcome
Right.
for any
Yeah.
reason. So that's just a level playing field.
Yeah.
And this isn't rocket science. This is all stuff we know.
Yeah.
I'm not reinventing the wheel. It's it's there. It's in the literature. We know what studies prove the best path forward.
Right.
And we just capitalize on it. So that's how Bari Boot Camp kind of came about.
Yeah.
And
And
we're
so
going
so
to.
tell us like a little bit, just for those who have no idea what Bari Boot Camp is, like tell us about it.
It's a one-stop shop, or that's what I kind of hope it feels like for people. You can come in, you can play Wordle, bariatric Wordle.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know. My husband's in charge of that, not me.
So
We we have contests. Like we just had one last week, and we gave away a Stanley Cup
Mhm.
because we want people to drink.
Yeah.
We have videos that explain why we do what we do and when we do it.
Mhm.
We just had a huge workshop that took place in January. It was really well attended, and we had all kinds of speakers, including a surgeon, a nutritionist, an exercise physiologist, and a psychologist.
Uh-huh.
And we have ongoing support groups from there where people can come in and talk about what kinds of changes they're making to their journey and their program, and getting support for that. And we do that on the weekends, so that there's better accessibility for people.
Yeah.
We just had a baby shower for one of our
Oh.
brand ambassadors. I know she
Oh.
just had a beautiful baby,
Amazing.
and that was that. Excuse me. That was tremendous. Because pregnancy after weight loss surgery is such a big deal.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
we had, let's see, what else do we do? Support groups, and I have probably 250 recipes on there that are all bariatric friendly. There's my blog, which has over 800 posts on it. Most of it's educational.
Mm-hmm.
Um, most of it's education, but we talk about new products. We talk about what workshops and support groups are out there in the community online that you can access. Um, oh, I talk a lot about what is coming down the pipe as far as research,
Okay.
and I'll actually
Really.
put links to study. Yeah.
And that's, and here at with her Health MD podcast, like I'm all about the evidence and the research and like wanting to know that when you seek help, that there are people that are out there that will give you information and will give you support using the evidence, so that it's not just somebody who's trying to, that's one of the big things is there's so many places and so much information available, but what you want is that accurate evidence-based information. You want to prevent
Exactly.
weight regain and have community, but you want to do it within the context of somebody who's going to do this in a way that's safe and supported by the scientific evidence and all that, which is very reassuring when, with Bari Boot Camp.
It's like I said, I want people to come in, feel welcome,
Mm-hmm.
and express what their needs are, and hopefully get feedback. The thing that it has been very difficult is trying to get people to open up on the forum.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an ongoing project.
Right.
I'll just keep working at it.
Yeah.
But that's a good way to ask for support if you need it. We also have Facebook groups, and Instagram account where I put up memes every day that people can
Mhm.
journal
Okay.
to.
Yeah.
So there's lots there. There really is. I I like to think so anyway.
Yeah.
And it's just growing.
Yeah, that's amazing. And tell me about, one thing you mentioned was like that, after having the surgery, like, there's really this ongoing, like life-changing situation in terms of, getting this to where you're going to be after the surgery and then preventing weight regain and the behavioral changes long term. Tell me a little bit about, for somebody who maybe is considering having the surgery, like to me, it's kind of like, well, if you're thinking about having the surgery, um, you're probably already in a situation where there's issues with eating and food and, not, I mean, just that your metabolism and your body's ability to process their food, something's, already going on. So whether you go for surgery or not, like you're already dealing with like a chronic medical condition. And so it sounds scary to be like, well, you have to make these changes for the rest of your life. But you kind of like, with this chronic medical condition, the benefits are like really there to seeking, a treatment that's going to offer the long-term remission or, improvement from the complications associated.
It's kind of like check yourself in and say, what kind of lifestyle do I want to have? Because
Right.
if you have diabetes, you've got a certain lifestyle that you really
Right.
need to adhere to if you want to, make a go of it.
Right.
If you have bariatric surgery, it's the same thing.
Right.
So it's kind of like choose your lifestyle.
Right. Yeah.
And the rewards after bariatric surgery are just, you can't convey
Right.
how tremendous they are.
Well, tell us about it, like from your experience and then also from people that you work with, tell us
Um,
about that.
just being able to
Yeah.
move,
Yeah.
just
Huge.
being able to get up and walk around and get up and down off the floor. to play with the grandchildren.
Mhm.
Um, having the energy to accomplish something. If I was still at my peak weight, I never would have been able to finish graduate school. Never.
It's just
No.
too exhausting, or do you feel like there was also like a cognitive kind of like, was it the exhaustion or?
It was
Oh,
exhaustion.
okay.
It was having the drive and the confidence.
Gotcha. Yeah.
When you're morbidly obese and living with, living in the medical community or trying to,
Mhm.
you take a lot of crap and you get shamed an awful lot. So
Yeah.
I really felt like for a long time I couldn't accomplish what I wanted to accomplish.
And I just want to call out the fact that as a separate issue, like that's not okay. Like the fact that you have like not the medical community, the portion of the medical community that is biased and would all
Absolutely.
of that, and would seek to limit or judge. That's a separate issue of like not being okay. Like that's terrible. And I'm so sorry that you had to go through that, and anybody else who has to go through that, because as a medical community, we need to address our biases.
Absolutely. That's without question, and we all have them.
Yeah,
Um, we all have them.
we do.
But
Everybody doesn't recognize
trying,
it's important.
yeah, you can chop that up no matter what.
Yeah.
Seriously, trying to, work in medicine at 350 pounds was definitely not easy, and
Yeah.
it really affected my confidence. It affected how I viewed myself. Um, And when you have people telling you every day that, why don't you just, stop eating? Okay.
People don't get it. No.
Well, yeah, like I said, you can chop that up
Right.
any way you want to, but
Right.
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
one of the best things that happened was not having to live with that
Yeah.
self-doubt.
Right. Yeah.
But I got rid of my CPAP machine that I was
Yeah.
very non-compliant with anyway. I
Yeah.
have no real medical problems other than
Mhm.
arthritis,
Sure.
and I did have PCOS
Mhm.
that was pretty successfully treated after weight loss.
Yeah.
So it changes your entire being,
Yeah.
and I can't tell you how much difference it made to have that support in my life between my family, my
Yeah.
friends, and a wonderful therapist.
Yeah.
Because you got to work through all
Right.
of the things that kept you stuck.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. And so, was it a hard decision at the time to have the surgery?
no, no. What took me into the emergency room was an episode of atrial fibrillation after having way too much caffeine, and I got shocked out of the rhythm.
Okay. Wow.
So, yeah, that was the scariest thing I've ever been through.
Yeah.
It's never come back,
Okay.
and but it is that touchstone that
Mhm.
keeps me. Yeah, we're just going to keep exercising every day. We're just going to keep taking
Mhm.
care of myself or ourselves, and
Right. Yeah.
that's all you can do.
Right. Yeah. And so, yeah, so what has it looked like? What was the actual surgery and the immediate recovery like for you?
I had a Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, and it took me 3 weeks, 4 weeks to really get back on my feet.
Mhm.
And I went back to work on
Mhm.
soft foods, which was not difficult. I pack my lunch every
Mhm.
day anyway. And it, walking around the hospital got a
Oh
whole lot
yeah.
easier. A
Do a
whole
lot
lot
of walk
easier.
and
But
hospital
it,
work.
a lot. There were days I did probably 4 or 5 miles,
Yeah.
which certainly helped. And I lost 100 pounds within 10.5 months, I
Wow.
think it was. And continued to lose for the first 18
Okay.
months. But like I said, I exercise frequently.
Hmm.
I'm weightlifting in the gym. I write down what I eat when I need to. It's not every day,
Hmm.
but if I feel that I'm kind of slipping up,
Yeah,
um, or grazing a little bit, I'll start recording everything again, and weighing and measuring if I need to.
that makes
Um,
sense.
so food diary, I do 4, maybe 5 support groups a month.
Hmm.
I write in a journal. I still see a therapist who helps me adjust as time goes on.
Hmm.
Um, but it's like I said, it's amazingly doable.
Yeah,
It becomes part of you.
right. That makes
So
sense. Yeah, it's interesting, like going through sort of my son is like 2.5 years out of his gastric sleeve. And so he, has kind of gotten to that like nadir on the weight loss. But I think well, he's growing. So but now he's kind of refocusing, like, that ongoing support kind of thing. Like right now he's picking up like with the gym stuff and trying to like make sure he's getting enough protein, because sometimes that kind of slips up. And I was thinking about just like living with other people, like for him, because it's like we want to support him, but like, there's just so many, like we have a big family with like 6 people, including our au pair that live at the house. And, like we have lots of different foods for different people. And, so that was something I was thinking of, sort of with how beneficial it is to have like ongoing support. The kind of the guidance of like just the reminders of like, well, what should I be doing for protein, and what's good exercises, and just also like social supports, and also just navigating this with all the complications of just daily life in general.
it's ongoing and it changes constantly.
Yeah.
Your journey does not, and your program does not stay the same. Hopefully, if you're running into snags, you
Yeah.
look back and you say, okay, what am I doing here? How
Right.
did I get off track? And then you change the journey to accommodate the needs that you
Right.
have.
Right.
And your son's going to learn how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's such a
I
beautiful
still
life
get
skill.
so worried, like about like, the possibility of regain, or, things like this. And then we'll talk about it and we'll be like, well, there is some risk there, but also like you refocus, like you just refocus. And yeah, so it's been kind of nice to see this firsthand and support him with that. Yeah.
Well, the other thing is making sure you stay in contact with your program,
Right.
because if you do start really having difficulties getting in to see them, talking to the
Mhm.
dietitian, maybe you need a little GLP-1, maybe you
Right.
need a little
Absolutely.
you just keep going. It's a chronic disease.
Yep. Absolutely.
And that's how you fight it every single day.
Yeah.
You don't give up on your blood pressure.
Right.
If your medication stops
Exactly.
working, yeah, you go
And
and
I
get.
do a lot of medical weight management with like GLP-1s and everything. So, I just that like with my patients. And so it's the same thing. I'm always telling them this is a chronic long-term thing. And, we look at it like that. So we're not thinking, I know there's a lot of diet industry stuff where it's like, oh, you're gonna, get to your goal weight or whatever. It's like, well, our goal is that you get to a place where your health is optimized. And then, we don't like the support is ongoing, like your need is ongoing. So will we space out appointments when you're, in a good place and things are, you know, stable and manageable, sure. I mean, you know, it might need a little less oversight, but I mean, it's not, we're still going to do ongoing support like long term, because I mean, you know, we're not, I feel like too much of things like, you know, diet industry, weight loss and stuff like that is like, you know, kind of letting loose after, you know, you get to a goal or something. And it's like, that's not how weight actually works. Like, your body, your metabolism is adjusted, and those behaviors that got you where you want to be, and medication, surgery, whatever other medical supports have been necessary, like, we still need ongoing management for that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Our philosophies are so
Right.
so aligned.
Right. Just
Yeah.
like blood pressure, like you said, high cholesterol. I'm like, you wouldn't go off your blood pressure medication because we're getting a bunch of normal readings. Could we titrate it or make a change? Sure, but like, we're not, I mean, it's not gone. I mean, you know, unless you were eliminated the risk factor because you lost 100 pounds, like then you might be able to go off your blood pressure medication. But that's because some other chronic underlying risk factor has been improved. So,
Right.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there's, you know, it's been a long time. I have zero regrets. No regrets. Made a lot of mistakes, learned from them,
Yeah.
and just keep going on.
Well, that sounds like that's what life is all about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, Bari Boot Camp will continue to evolve.
Mhm.
It's always going to be small.
Mhm.
I don't anticipate having 10,000
Mhm.
members, not at all.
How many
Um,
members do you have now? Or like roughly, I'm not exact.
about 100.
Okay. Yeah.
And we're pretty much going, you know, through referral
Mhm.
and word of mouth. I
Yeah.
don't advertise.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's just a happy, comfortable place to be.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. And was Bari Boot Camp, did you develop that as part of your doctorate, or like was it, I mean, I know your doctorate's related, but was that part of your research or work that you did for your doctorate?
No, after I graduated, it was kind of like, okay, where am I going?
Yeah.
And I had always had this kind of nibbling in the back of my mind. We got to start, you know,
Yeah.
I had a name. I actually had bought the domain, um, 2021, and we launched October of 2022.
Gotcha.
So it had been out there percolating while I was still in school.
Right. That makes sense.
So yeah, looking back on the
Right.
dates, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Anything else that you want to add? Okay.
No, no, it's been a joy talking to you
Yeah.
again.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having
Yeah.
me. I've had a great time.
Awesome. And I'll put the link, you know, for Bari Boot Camp, and then the magazine that you were, article that you were featured in, just for some more information. And
Thank you.
okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Take care. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you too.
Bye-bye.